And welcome back to the European LCS. Splyce are in a tough fight for a playoff spot in Group B with a lot of competition around them, and now they're now they are under even more pressure as they're down 0-1 against Misfits game.
So were you for a second there? Like,
I don't really know.
People put words on a screen. Sometimes we say them, sometimes the brain doesn't work.
My brain just went into, like, you know when a record just spins and skips? Anyways, Splyce, they have side selection this game. They picked blue side stress. Do you think they go for the same kind of 1-4 style comp? Or tanks?
I don't necessarily think it's 1-4 or tanks. I think if you go for the 1-4, you just get a little bit better engaged. Maybe bring an Ashe, something like that. The Varus wasn't a problem. Like, that's not a big issue, but just get something that can start fights on the rest of the pack. That's one issue. I think you might just want to draft the Maokai for yourself.
Well, we're going to see, because it was a first pick Kalista, and then Splyce decided to go Braum and Sejuani. And that allowed Maokai to go through. Right.
We had so much discussion on Gragas, Lee Sin coming into today that the Maokai just kind of gets picked up very quickly. And you see the counter engage it has in team fights. I wouldn't even be surprised now to see Misfits ban it and not let Splyce pick it on that blue side.
Well, let's find out, because Misfits, of course, they have a red side. They've got some of those traditional red side OP bans to take care of, which currently kind of feels like Zach and Elise. Maybe Cho'Gath as well.
But I feel like even maybe you just let the Elise through. It's not exactly the safest thing to do because the early game can easily get taken over by an Elise. But considering so much discussion on junglers has been about the tanks and how strong they are, maybe you just test the waters on that now.
Well, look at the picks and bans. PowerOfEvil, by the way, he ended up winning the undefeated mid lane champion war. His Orianna goes on to 6-0 and will remain there as it has been banned off the table. Elise as well as Talia. For Splyce, Zach, Cho'Gath, and Maokai, or what else?
Kalista we might see banned. Caitlyn has been banned in pretty much every game on 7.14 so far, and 7.13 and a lot of other patches before. So Kalista, if Caitlyn is banned, I think goes up in priority. Otherwise you end up taking one and trading the other.
Well, there you go. Caitlyn taken off the pool. Hans Summer, by the way, 0 Caitlyn games played this split. He's only played 4 champions. Varus, Xayah, Ashe, and Kalista. And Varus makes up 11 of those picks. With all the champions available to them and Maokai, Splyce opt into Braum.
Yeah, you allow them to have Kalista Maokai if they want it here. There's a lot of supports you can pick into the Braum. Not that Braum first pick is bad. I think it's actually good at deterring a lot of damage in team fights, a lot of engage potential you can disengage from with the Braum. I just think Misfits have a lot of options here. I don't think Splyce actually got too much pace with this first pick Braum.
Now let's see if it ends up hurting them, because there is the Kalista for Hans Summer. And Maxlore
next to Maokai.
Very comfortably lock in that Maokai. So what happens next? Where does Splyce look if this ends up being the Maokai or whatever else?
I think we'll see the Sejuani come through again. Maybe the Varus once again for Splyce. It's not a problem for them. It's actually a decent lane. They can continue that push, have the presence in team fights. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the draft. I just prefer what Misfits already have here.
Well, Sejuani is definitely locked in, and with the Orianna and the Talia bans off the table, Sencux is going to take away the early game Syndra.
Yeah, that's what makes a lot of sense here. With priority taken away, well, at least the Orianna removed, PowerOfEvil doesn't have his main blind pick in that Orianna. Looking at PowerOfEvil, he's played so many different champions, so he has an arsenal unlike anybody.
Yes, that's the case, and he builds them frequently unlike anybody as well. Gonna default to the Vladimir. So we end up having a support jungle mid for Splyce, ADC jungle or top, and mid for Misfits.
It's exactly the same principle though as before. You get this later game damage in team fights based, and while Vlad's not a tank himself, he's always been considered a vamp tank, somebody who sustains himself up very well through fights. You have to kill basically a few times. So even more tankiness on the side of Misfits. They want to take away some of the side lane threat that Wunder had, though, in the previous game. Of course, we saw Camille into the Jarvan, working very well for Wunder as Trashy visited the lane early on. But I think we still got the likes of the Renekton, we got the Jarvans that are still good for Wunder if he wants to go that route.
And all the way down to phase 2 to see Thresh getting banned out once again. Splyce went Thresh and Rakan in game 1. kind of inclined to agree with that again. I think Ignar's Rakan and Thresh have been fantastic. Definitely looked okay on the Trundle, but Trundle didn't really make or break game number 1.
And the thing about Thresh is he's not exactly a full tank himself. He builds that way, but is not as strong as the Braum, for instance, for actually being a frontline champion. Great at setting up catches, great at trying to start engages, but that's not really everything you want from that Thresh. We, of course, have the Alistair as an option for Misfits here, who I would argue, paired with Kalista, even better at getting fights started.
Yeah, definitely if you want more of that engage. Where do they decide to go? Of course, it was a Jarvan blind pick when Misfits were blue side. We'll look to do that again. I think this will actually be then 2, 3, 4 out of 4 games Jarvan for Alphari over week 7. So definitely comfort pick for this pick.
And why not go for basically the same composition again, right? Like, it worked so well. Misfits didn't even have to break a sweat to turn that game around. It looked like Splyce were taking control through the side lane, and Misfits just had the opportune moment of turning a fight round by Maxlore hitting his ultimate. And the game is done. I do like, though, this extra escape now on the AD carry for Kobbe. Tristana will allow him to jump away. And now we've got extra teamfight presence coming from this Gnar. Good side lane control once again. You've got teamfight presence from the Mega Gnar. A little bit better out of Splyce, I think. A little more rounded, but still not lacking that primary engage that is reliable.
Yeah, you've got the Glacial Prison, which can be flashed away from. And, of course, because Jace was the ban on the Splyce side, allows Rakan through, and Ignar locks that in. So if you want some sort of primary engage, flash, quickness, hero's entrance, grand entrance rather, W of the Rakan, that's definitely going to get you in there.
You don't even need to flash when you got a Kalista alongside as well. Kalista Rakan, very successful bottom lane pairing. We've seen a bunch of it in the LCK recently. Difficult to play around because once that Fate's Call's been used, then you can flash after that with the quickness, then get the W as well. So lots and lots of range coming through from this Misfits bottom lane. I want to see this laning phase. Tristana, Braum, difficult to deal with as well. When you combo and engage with the both of them, there's actually a lot of trading damage that comes through.
This is the first time that we're going to see Kobbe play Tristana on stage. The split, it was banned out in game number 1 by Misfits. Let's see whether or not that ban was justified. And of course, for that, Rakan and Ignar, 3 games played, 2 wins and 1 loss. Stress, if I were to tell you that game 1 of this series was the lowest total kills of any game this split, would you be surprised?
I wouldn't be surprised. Neither are you telling me nor the statistic, because I am stood next to Quickstats himself.
I have one more tier to this.
Oh, okay.
Not only was the game the lowest total kills for a game all split long, it was actually the 2nd lowest kills for a winning team.
Whoa.
Only one team has won a game by securing less kills, and it was G2 against NIP. They did it in 6. Misfits needed 7. Let's see if they can beat that record today.
Yeah, they're gonna go with 5. All they need to do is kill each member of Splyce once.
They need to kill more towers than there are opponent champions on the Rift. That's what Misfits will be looking for. We're hoping for a bit more of a bloodbath, though.
Oh no, it's not too bad right now, but Kobbe didn't buy a potion.
Ooh.
He has 50 gold in his inventory. He just misclicked, ran out of the base. Of course, we give you a trinket when you leave the base if you don't buy it, but you don't get potions or anything like that. It won't hurt him overly if he realizes and recalls now, but this laning phase is not going to be easy if he walks into lane already without a potion. He's going to rely on that sustain. Of course, Doran's shield is fine, but not enough.
No, not yet. Got himself a lot of time to work with.
Yeah, he's realized now.
Yeah, looking through the rest of the summoner spells very quickly. Flash Barrier for Sencux. PowerOfEvil, Ghost Flash, no real surprises as Mikyx busting a move behind that Santa Claus door. Okay, so laning phase. You mentioned the Tristana Braum going into Kalista Rakan. What are we expecting from the early levels of this matchup? And who do you think has the advantage?
So Kalista Rakan has a good amount of engage themselves by the fact that Rakan, when you have that entrance, he can deter a lot of what Braum wants to do. We saw yesterday, actually, Tristana get interrupted within the jump on the escape. That's one big tool that Misfits can utilize in the early trades if they hit level 2 first. The thing that we were talking about it coming out of Champion Select is the Winter's Bite passive comboed with Kobbe jumping aggressively. If you find a window for that, it's very difficult to deal with. So it's all on these micro trades in the bottom lane that I'm looking forward to. But I think consistency goes to Hans Sama and Ignar on this bottom lane.
All right, let's see if they can make it work. Much heavier pulls or leashes, it feels like, this time round, as opposed to game number 1. Trashy has got his red, makes his way back to the big Raptor. See if he sticks around. On the other side, Maxlore has already cleared out Blue and Wolf.
But that all gives Hans Sama and Ignar the ability to get into lane first. Look for that level 2 first and maybe try and push back Kobbe and Mikyx. Tristana's laning phase isn't the greatest, but the escape, the ability to farm is quite reliable. You tend not to win a whole bunch of lanes unless you can win some trades that you really shouldn't. But now here is that level 2 mark for Kobbe. Actually ends up getting that first.
Yeah, manages to stay slightly ahead. Mikyx, I think, was still in the jungle, giving a touch of solo XP to
Mikyx's only level 1 here on the engage.
All right, the entrance comes in. They caught it! Interrupts the rocket jump. Kobbe forced to heal and flash. Hans Sama's not done. Rent stacks available. Not going to be enough for the kill. Passive from those concussive blows. Not enough to find a stun yet, and the minions are helping out. They're tagged into Hans Sama as Ignar's able to escape.
That's the consistency of engage in the bottom lane off that level 2 that we were talking about. It's not done yet!
There's the flash engage! Knock up once more! Kobbe's running for his life. He saves the rocket jump to do it correctly this time. And in the class of flash economics, Misfits invest first.
Misfits invest. They got 3 summoners from Splyce. It's only Mikyx's flash that remains. But look, Kobbe is forced away from farming. Over 4 times the CS lead currently. Now, there is a big wave stacked in front of Kobbe. He will be able to regroup a lot of that. But look, if he stays under this tower, he's going to get threatened.
There's a tower dive available. Rocket jump not going to be enough. Kobbe is available for first blood. That's it. Hans Sama. But it's an instant reply as Kobbe gets one back. Wunder forced to flash. This is into enemy territory, but he's found himself a Sejuani. Trashy's here for backup, and there's no more shenanigans in the top lane.
PowerOfEvil couldn't roam out of the lane because Sencux was pushing him in, so we go all the way back to the bottom lane engage. As Kobbe was desperately trying to catch up on any CS in the lane that he could. Look, 6 CS to 22. And that was even before Hans Sama got that first kill. So the bottom lane was where we focused. This is the 3rd engage within 3 minutes coming through from Misfits. They get on to Kobbe. No, he has no heal. No, there's no exhaust here. And Hans Sama has enough damage with the Rend and the Q before they can turn it back around and get first blood for themselves for the Misfits.
So crucial difference there. 22 CS to 6 in favor of Hans Sama. Kobbe, I think, so fortunate to pick up that kill. But when you look at the lane, you're coming back with an attack speed dagger to a recurve bow. It's a 400 gold difference. Pretty much the first blood and some. And Misfits definitely going to be happy with this early exchange in the bottom lane, but here comes Trashy. He's available if anything were to break out.
And Splyce have done a good job of trying to push the lane back up to try and deny any wards coming through, so Trashy can try and get into the bottom lane, Q into flash maybe.
Well, Winter's Bite comes out, great knock-up from the entrance, dash away, and that's going to be an easy kill for Trashy. So much CC from the Freljord combination.
And so much action. This is the complete opposite of game 1 of this series. Game 1 had no action for about 10 minutes until we got to dive in the top lane. This game, however, already 3 engages in the bottom lane out of Misfits. 1 key engage now with Trashy in the bottom lane, and it is allowing Splyce to maybe recoup some of that difference because, look, Kobbe gets some time to farm. It's still a big CS gap, but he's already got a kill to his name. Trashy got a kill to his name, looking to get to that level 6 mark quickly. But look, Trashy, he knows if he can just get this Winter's Assault into the flash, he can get some of the crowd control down. Nice knock-up from Ignar to try and deny any further aggression, but Hans Sama, without a flash, without heal himself, cannot get free of the engage.
There's just too much crowd control between a Sejuani and a Braum. Stacks up over time, locks you down. Trashy able to make that gank work. He was also around to help out Wunder, by the way. So, you know, we talked a lot about Maxlore and Trashy coming in. We had the hype video. We had the cheeky bants, as it were. But Trashy's early games across both of the games so far definitely been noticeable and impactful.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to see from Trashy on this meta. We know with tanks he can have this impact. He doesn't have the activity in his mind when he's playing the likes of like a Lee Sin against an Elise that he does with tanks. Because if he's getting pressured by an Elise, he suddenly goes into a defensive mode, whereas if he knows he can take a trade or two in the jungle, Trashy actually is able to be active on the map and look to make the plays himself, and that's when Splyce are exciting to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Managed to work out, and of course, something we didn't mention, which we should have stressed, because, you know, we have been attending classes recently. Mikyx, because he didn't use that flash from the earlier trade, he had the advantageous situation in the flash economics. That's what allowed that play to happen, that gank with Trashy.
I'm hoping for a flash recession at some point.
We'll find out. I mean, look, we've got 1, 2, 3 flashes becoming available soon. So that means Hansama, Ignar, and Kobbe will have more tools available to them. But it might not get needed. All right, Winter's Bite, that tags Ignar. Ooh, doesn't make it over the wall. Flash is already used, jumps away. That's a rocket jump forward. An explosive charge sitting on top of Ignar. Now all of a sudden, Hansama's the man that's under threat. He's got a flash available, may need it. Less than 100 HP, he's down.
Down in the bottom lane again. I was just expecting Hansama to be able to get out, but as he said, the flash was not available for him. Couldn't hop back in the lane, used that heal, and despite having a CS lead, 3 deaths to his name is not what we've come to expect out of Hansama in the laning phase. We want to see him be dominant on this Kalista, but the difficulty is Tristana, Braum, the range, the crowd control in this lane shuts down Kalista quite well. They can always stick on top of Hansama. Now, is this what you expected when we were talking about some of the tools that the Kalista Rakan had and how the sort of consistency of that lane was favored? Of course, Trashy ganks are going to impact that. But Kobbe and Mikyx seem to have their number in the 2v2s. I didn't expect it to this degree, but look, Kobbe and Mikyx are very good at playing aggressive when they know they have the opportunity. They're one of the best bottom lanes for actually pushing forward in lane, making aggressive trades, trying to push onto the enemy tower. I was talking with Medic a lot during the series against NIP about how Splyce's bottom lane have a very high forward percentage. That's how much they spend, if you drew a line down the middle of the rift through the river, how much they spend time in the enemy territory. They very heavily invest into pushing up in lane, and that's what makes them difficult to play against. Well, that's allowed Splyce to take the lead. Okay, we're 9 minutes in, Stress. We've not talked about anything other than the bottom lane, for obvious reasons. But let's talk a little bit about this matchup as PowerOfEvil continues to get traded on. Sencux is going to get the Dark Sphere, Force of Will, Unleashed Power. The last tick comes out though, and PowerOfEvil forced to use the Ghost. And we've seen this Syndra Vladimir matchup several times in the past. Is this exactly how you expected it? Pretty much. You get a CS advantage early on. PowerOfEvil shouldn't die to the Syndra. Unless he makes a mistake, if he stays under tower on low health, it's easy then to commit to the kill. But look, this is about team fighting later for PowerOfEvil. He can survive through an awkward laning phase and then look to take control of fights later. But look, top lane's where we're going. All right, Boulder Toss comes out, flashes away. Alphari's in trouble. Up in the top, all of a sudden, Trashy. He's going to get jumped on by Maxlore. Uses that Arctic Assault to safety. And by the way, that whole trade with Wunder into Alphari, that was just absolutely gorgeous. I might not get a chance to talk about it because that's a rocket shot forward. Stand behind me, Kobbe yells. He gets out of the way of the entrance. Flash comes down. Got him. Facial fissure as well. The bomb on Hansama, not enough to kill him, and he escapes with his life. Kobbe used the buster shot to try and just get that execute damage to go through. Look, Mikyx actually trying to chase him. Mikyx's going to be able to get them. The flash! I keep saying it. Flash economics is a thing. Mikyx uses it for the investment. And a Winter's Bite for first blood. Entrance comes out from Ignar, and Mikyx's busy tanking up the tower. Kobbe, rocket jumps forward, gets the stun. Ignar's running away with the quickness. No flash available to him. Less than 100 hit points. One more shot will do it. Two more shots will do it. Kobbe he survived!
I thought he had it. I really thought he had it.
Oh, Kobbe did not get the kill, ever so slightly out of range. Wow, okay, so Mikyx must have heard us talking about how not a lot of supports have actually scored solo kills, and we've actually had 2 this week. Now they transfer that into the bottom lane tower. Tower first blood going in favor of Splyce. From what was a horrendous start to this game for the Splyce bottom lane. They got flashes burned, they lost a trade. You were right, Mikyx still had his flash. They were able to turn back a gank. Trashy came down to help them, and from what looked to be a fantastic start for Misfits, 1-4-0 on Hansama. is just an awful amount of pressure that has been applied to the Misfits in the bottom lane.
I think Kobbe and Mikyx have been watching a lot of San Diego Comic-Con updates and videos.
Okay.
They've been inspired by Mark Ruffalo's interpretation of the Hulk. Because once they were beaten once and smashed down, they hulked out and have taken over this game. Hans Summer and Ignar, they lost their tower. They're now even on CS. And it seems like they are getting dominated. Typical, as I say that, Mickey's now the target of some pressure here from Misfits, and they will take him down. The caster curse is real. Sanguine Pool, Sapling Toss, runs over, and
he survived!
Oh my word!
Trashy intercepts the kitten on the way past as well. Doesn't get that last bit of damage. Mikyx and Ignar have been slithers away from death twice now. It's been a much more explosive game than game one of this series. Game one had no kills forever, but now look, Splyce trying to group up on the top side. That's why Mikyx was up near the middle lane. They're trying to push forward using this Tristana, but it was answered by Hans Summer and Ignar because, of course, bottom lane tower already down in favor of Splyce. They want to keep the momentum going.
And I cannot believe that Splyce and Misfits are trying to make me a liar. One more shot, IL. And no, not enough. Mickey's gonna die, IL, and no, he manages to survive. Let's see what happens next. We talked about this 2v2 a lot. Kobbe and Mikyx have got the support of a teleport. Wunder's coming in from behind. Glacial Fissure comes down. Wunder, no Mega Gnar yet. He's gonna need some time to ramp up, and after getting the boomerang, that teleport fizzles.
The trade now has to be tower for tower because look, Jarvan's on the bottom side, Alphari's going to take that tower in response, so Splyce will still commit to this. It will still give them an objective, but you're right, they would have liked kills from that. They wanted to snowball a little bit more from this bottom lane because remember, Tristana, late game, can deal very well, even against tanks. As soon as you get past Lord Dominic's, once you've got critical items coming through, you just get massive damage out, and that's one way of dealing with a Maokai.
And of course, Splyce definitely got all the tools available to them. 2,000 gold up. The teleport from Wunder will secure the trade of towers. And the advantage here is, of course, the Rift Herald picked up by Splyce. Alphari will get the first tower for Misfits. And now Ignar almost caught out. But as it stands, Splyce again are showing up in the early game stress. Unleash power onto PowerOfEvil. And Splyce, the area we thought they were weaker than Misfits, showing up that they can play it well.
A lot better than we anticipated going up against Misfits, but we have to look at the questions that were raised in game one at this point was the initial full skirmishes. With the team, with the Maokai available, will they still go in favor of Splyce, despite the fact that Misfits had this great team composition for fighting? Like, Splyce have the lead for now, but again, it's not significant enough. It's 1,300 gold. Easily a team fight can be turned by Maxlore's Maokai, and Misfits are right back in it. That's what happened in game one. They won one fight, went to Baron, got to Baron, won the game with 2 more fights.
And if I recall correctly, it was 7 kills for Misfits and 1 for Splyce. So let's see whether or not we can break that record. That was the lowest total kills for a game all summer long. Misfits get a lot of damage onto that outer turret in the top lane, whereas the defense for Misfits in the mid lane gonna be a little bit late to arrive, but I feel like it might just be enough. Minion Wave starts the conga line down, but with the satchel as well, or the explosive charge rather. A lot of damage on the outer turret.
And the reason Splyce don't fully commit to this is because of the teleport not being available. Look, Wunder is in the top side, no TP, whereas Jarvan could be anywhere looking to teleport. They've even seen him on wards around the middle lane. So if Splyce step up to that tower thinking, oh, Vlad doesn't have much wave clear, we can take this tower. No, it's the Jarvan, it's the Maokai that come into the fight and actually punish Splyce in response.
Yeah, and I haven't talked about the items at all yet. We passed 15 minutes, black cleavers for both top laners. The team had picked up for Alphari. It's the Proto Belt for PowerOfEvil's Vlad versus Morel Namicon, which is a pretty good item into all of the healing that's already there. And Splyce, they're just going to brute force. They've embraced 7-14. Grouped as a 5-man and taken the tower.
Easily taken down. Rift Herald into second wave push then, and that's where Misfits had to spread back out. They can't commit that much time to just defending in the middle lane, otherwise the rest of the map falls away from them. Splyce had already taken a greater amount of towers, they already had a lot of the vision control, so they controlled that middle lane. Easy push on, and now we want to see what Splyce do next. we talked in game 1 about how they're looking for this longer range catch with the Sejuani, with the Syndra. And it was a team fight they got baited into.
Yep.
One that wasn't just a long-range catch and we're done, just kill them instantly. It was a prolonged fight, and that is what Misfits will be trying to do once again, is trying to bait Splyce into fighting them 5v5. Let's
see what Misfits can do. They reckon there's a ward in this a tri-bush in the top quadrant. Tower and Hans Summer is what Misfits were hoping Splyce would rally around, but not going to be the case, and this will be the second tower. And
the way they take this tower is they have Hansama in the lane, they have support with a couple of wards in the jungle, and then PowerOfEvil is on his half of the map. Jarvan isn't even in vision, he's actually in the base waiting if he's needed for a teleport, so that tower is very safe for Hansama to take without anybody on Splyce being able to get anything else in response. And that's the problem, is Splyce actually do need a little bit of this catch to work for them, otherwise they won't get further objectives. The inner towers are harder to take just naturally because of their position on the map.
Yeah, and let's see whether or not Splyce can push fast. I mean, they've got a team comp that can work pretty well, keep themselves grouped up. And as we get close to 20 minutes, reminder, of course, the Misfits from Group A, currently in 3rd place in the playoff race. Roccat just behind them at 3 series wins, 6 losses. Misfits currently 5 series wins, 3 losses. So Misfits want to pick up another win, put some distance between them and Roccat. And it's important because, of course, Roccat just took down the Unicorns of Love. Now that's a good thing for Splyce. Splyce just behind UOL in their respective 3rd place in Group B. And of course, Vitality look to be surging, look to be playing well. Vitality are at the heels of Splyce.
And the reason that this is all important is basically getting to that 6th win doesn't guarantee you playoffs, but putting a 3-game difference between yourselves, or 3-series difference between yourselves and your next competitor below you is basically a guarantee, because you've got to assume that Roccat, unless they're on one of these big streaks, aren't going to beat the likes of G2, Fnatic, Misfits in a row.
Especially as well because we go back to inner group play next week. So at some point, Misfits will go up against Roccat again, and Splyce will go up against Vitality. So those are the important games. All right, Wunder is going to Gnar out, has flash available, doesn't even need it. Easily gets the stun onto Hans Summer. But Wunder's able to clear out the wave that defends the tower, and it allows Trashy to take the tower with the help of Kobbe. PowerOfEvil, he's looking to get some damage down onto Mikyx. And actually got a lot of damage down looking at Mikyx's HP pool.
Yeah, easy to shred through at this point. Mikyx's not exactly the tankiest of champions on this Braum. Decent when he's got Unbreakable on, but outside of that, needs a few more items in order to really be that frontline threat. Hang on, here we go, Misfits. This is the fight they've been looking for, potentially.
Indeed, Misfits are going to pick up their 2nd kill of the game. PowerOfEvil takes down Mikyx.
Sencux.
Onto Sencux. Sencux unleashed his power earlier. Buster Shot buys some time. The great stun from Sencux, rather. Not going to be enough to stop PowerOfEvil as PowerOfEvil makes it a double.
You couldn't write this. It's the same thing almost happening again as Misfits are able to just brute force through the mid lane, this time catching Mikyx out, looking to follow on. Ignar maybe even looking to go aggressive here as he dashes and dances forward in the fight. Misfits, it's going to be the tower.
Yeah, 20 minutes in, tower number 3 secured, evens out the gold. Misfits also got the first dragon of the game, so we're even at 20 minutes, so take me through this replay.
Yeah, Misfits waiting around in the bush, trying to bait Mikyx forward in the lane, and he just steps close enough that all of the crowd control connects. And look, here comes the Kittenclism coming through the team fight. Alphari jumps in, has enough damage to deal with Sencux, and Kobbe, trying desperately to help Sencux out, moves forward to get the Buster Shot and allows Maxlore actually to cut in behind him in the fight and make sure they secure that last kill.
And despite Wunder having teleport, his Gnar was on cooldown. Remember, he used it to defend that inner turret top. The cost ends up being the teammates' lives and the mid-outer turret. Right, PowerOfEvil, he's used the Proto Belt forward, got a Luden's Echo, 2nd item on that Vlad. Baron is alive, so if another big team fight victory is secured at this sort of 2-item spike, with the tanks, Baron is a very viable objective.
Observers were also just showing us the amount of vision control, or at least what Splyce could see. The wards in the lower side jungle actually just died. Look at Hans Sama coming across. Wunder is playing this dangerously. He had wards there, but they have gone now, and Wunder is in mini Gnar form. He is susceptible to an attack here from Hans Sama.
All right, Hans Sama, flash and heal available. Wunder's going to start charging up on that rage bar. But Misfits don't fancy the engage just yet. Don't fancy the 2v1, and instead, Wunder's able to walk away. Maybe a little lucky, as both teams are now rotating around and trying to combat vision around Baron.
And it actually helps Splyce out here because they get more vision around the Baron area, can deny a lot of the wards that were already placed by Misfits. And we go back to a little bit more of a stalemate of a game than the last game, where it kind of snowballed heavily after that first team fight. But Misfits, we've seen the potency of their composition once again. Now Splyce will have to recognize that and play around it. They cannot get baited into those fights. But how do you win a game with a pick composition, or at least this type of composition from Splyce, without fighting the Misfits? It's near impossible.
Yes, will be indeed, especially with Maxlore's Cataclysm, as you keep calling it. I love that name, by the way. The amount of power that will give Hans Sama and PowerOfEvil and freedom in those team fights. So Misfits now on the defensive, trying to prevent Splyce setting up vision in their jungle, very specifically around Baron. Another items being picked up here. Execution is calling on the side of Kobbe. Liandry's Torment just picked up by Sencux. Frozen Mallets for Wunder. So big power spike's been hit here on the side of Splyce.
And I really like the Executioner's Calling. It's a stop-off buy now. You just invest 800 gold to basically shut the Vladimir out of the fight for as long as you possibly can. You don't have to finish the Mortal Reminder now. He may even end up just going Lord Dominic's anyway and saying, okay, until I get to 6 items, I'm just going to sit on this because of how much effectiveness it brings to our team fights. PowerOfEvil's looking to flank though. Hang on, this could be the fight here. Flash is used.
Ghost once PowerOfEvil.
Oh, the knockup!
For the initiation. Cataclysm's fantastic. Kobbe actually jumps into the pit. Now there's an exhaust on PowerOfEvil. The transfusion's trying to save his life. Finally goes into the sanguine pool. It's a double kill for Misfits. They're not done yet. Splyce are getting wrecked. Wunder's about to go Mega Gnar's. Kobbe finally gets one back in reply for Splyce. Out in the back end. Wunder at least gets one down. He's gnarred out, trying to take down Ignar as best he can. 3 members of Splyce for 1-2 of the Misfits. Look at that flash engage. That was nice and cheeky from Alphari, and Hans Sama shuts down the 4th for Misfits.
Misfits with another simple team fight win. Just crushed through Splyce, and now they turn towards the Baron.
This is game 1, but they don't get the Baron stress.
I thought you told me I'd said it was game 1. I'm like, it's the same thing again, but everything going Misfits' way. I do feel like it's a repeat. It actually feels like a rerun. We're watching Dave in the UK. It's terrible British comedy that is being replayed at 3 in the morning for who knows why. But look at this engage. Everything goes beautifully. PowerOfEvil takes up so much time from Kobbe, Mikyx, Trashy, everybody in the backline as they're just controlling this fight. Hans Sama is able to freely get just attack after attack through the fight and just rend everybody down. If they had killed Trashy, they may have looked for this because, of course, Trashy got the recall out. They may have gone for Baron after with the rend damage, but they were all low themselves. You don't want to risk that happening.
This is exactly what you talked about in picks and bans. The initiation power on the side of Misfits, it's a little bit more subjective or situational on the side of Splyce. You really have to set up. You need that prison to hit. You need walls to be around for Mega Gnar. And Misfits, they are now taking control. 25 minutes in, got the kill advantage, the gold advantage, no matter how minor it may be. And it feels like their team comp is becoming fully activated.
So I think one of the weird things about competitive play in League is there's always been this high aspiration of difficult comps, like poke comps to pull off 1-3-1s. If you're playing flex queue, draft what Misfits have and put an Orianna in the middle lane, and it is so difficult to lose team fights. You just commit to it, and Misfits right now, they want to go again. Look, just watch it.
Well, let's see whether or not Mikyx can escape with his life. The Cataclysm and Hans Sama dunk him down. The kittens are purring, and Misfits are happy. Mikyx's already taken down the back end. Wunder's done a lot to shut down Ignar.
Hang on.
Back's down. We need to keep our eyes on Kobbe. Kobbe forced to flash defensively. This is getting messy. Wunder uses the back end. Kobbe gets another. Wunder's running for his life. Rocket jump forward, looking for the reset.
He's got this.
Kobbe's got another. Red buff is up. The shutdown secured. PowerOfEvil. Sanguine pulls out. Kobbe needs to chase him down. Doesn't have the range, and PowerOfEvil escapes.
A good turnaround on the team fight there from Splyce. We were talking about how Misfits should theoretically take the team fight easily. Well, no, Kobbe has enough damage now. You can see he's passed 2 items. He had a lot of time and freedom in the team fight. Nobody actually found him early on. And despite all of the crowd control from Misfits landing, they still had damage at the end on the side of Splyce and were able to turn things back around.
Let's see this replay once again. It all starts with Mikyx getting caught, and he survives for a fairly lengthy period of time, but a great stun from Sencux.
Watch Kobbe's positioning here. He's outside of the Cataclysm, moves back away from the Maokai ultimate, and he's able to kite back. This is the strength of Tristana in these fights. If you have jump available, you just move back and you're very, very safe. Then you look to move forward after the resets. And look, Wunder is able to get both PowerOfEvil and Hansama to deny their damage, force out the QSS from Hansama as well. And that means Kobbe is way healthy enough to take out Hansama. Look at that damage done in that fight by Kobbe.
5,800 damage. Kobbe sitting 5 kills, 2 assists, 5 deaths at level 14. He's picked himself up another Zeal, and we still have a game on our hands. Splyce show that their team composition in the right scenario, in the right part of the map, can be very, very effective. Bring them into those tight corridors, and the power of Syndra, Sejuani, as well as Braum becomes very, very effective, Stress.
Just put all of the peel in front of Kobbe. Just make sure nobody ever touches him in a fight. And then Splyce should grind through some long, extended fights using this Tristana.
This is the Tristana that was banned in game number 1. Misfits did not allow it through. Picked up here in game number 2. It was a phase 2 pick. And Kobbe gave up first blood and was down 20 CS. Maxlore's the target. Gets down the Nature's Grasp. Glacial Fissure comes down as well. Alphari on the back end. Gets a decent Cataclysm. Here comes PowerOfEvil. Needs to do a lot with the Hemo Plague.
He's on Kobbe.
Down. Got Kobbe. Kobbe's low, but not killed yet. Kobbe's the target of Alphari. Alphari shuts him down. This could be the fight for Misfits. Hansama's looking for the cleanup. Trashy goes down. Wunder's the next target. Misfits will ace Splyce. No, they won't, because Sencux alive for a few seconds longer. Can he make it out the base? Sencux running through the jungle, and Wunder is going to run into Ignar. Kill secured here by Hansama with the red buff. And Sencux walks over a ward. He's going to get spotted out. The Ace and the Baron are available to Misfits. I wonder whether or not they're going to run him down.
This game's gone all kinds of crazy. Alphari even deciding to just start the Baron himself. Misfits were able to find Kobbe despite Maxlore actually going in early in the fight. He got engaged upon before PowerOfEvil was able to get there, before there was enough time to be 5-on-5, but Misfits are able to find Kobbe, shut out the team fight, and deny Splyce any hope of the first Baron of game 2.
Easily secured in the end for Misfits, and despite losing the first member of the fight, Kobbe got shut down so effectively.
Yeah, PowerOfEvil's all the way up in top lane right now, and this is where Maxlore ends up getting taken down. Alphari does a good job of forcing a lot of cooldowns here. You see the jump came out from Kobbe, and he couldn't quite clear the fight, had to QSS himself as well. That means Kobbe, as PowerOfEvil went back aggressively in, was actually blindsided by Alphari on the second half of the fight, and Misfits were able to then take control from there.
Man, what a weird and interesting game. The swings back and forth. But Misfits still feel to be just ahead, just stronger in these team fights as they continue to play out.
Hansama was 1-4, and now he's 6-5. This has been a great turnaround. This game has been all about whose AD carry can actually deal damage in team fights. A lot of people wanted to meme about AD carries in 2017. Who can kill tanks? AD carries can, if you peel for them. Get him that Lord Dominic's. That's exactly what Hansama has right now.
Give them enough time, and he can definitely do that. Kobbe's decided to go for the rapid fire cannon to complement his static shiv. Let's see whether or not that extra range plays into his favor, because Misfits are throwing everything at shutting him down.
And Hans Sama with a very rare Mercury treads buy for an AD carry. Typically we see the Berserker's Greaves or Swiftness if you're looking to play Jhin, but look, it's because of the crowd control. You want to reduce as much time that you're CC'd in these fights as possible, so Hans Sama can be active, be mobile. He's got enough attack speed coming from his build as it is. He's not too worried about that. He just needs to be available to deal damage.
You need to get so many Ren stacks down as well to take out those tanks.
Yeah.
And those tanks are getting tanky. Maxlore's got his Gargoyle Stone Plates. Locket picked up for Trashy, Stone Plate for Wunder as well. And Misfits using this Baron buff very effectively. Mid, inner, already knocked over. Vision secured basically across the map. And Misfits continue to apply siege damage and chip damage into the bottom inner turrets.
I am so glad to see Misfits playing this style of team fighting. It's so fun to watch.
It is indeed. Nature's Grass, that's going to be the zoning ulti. Teleport actually cancelled from Wunder. You might wonder why he did that, and not going to complete it. It's a 5,000 gold lead for Misfits.
Well, that means Splyce will be wondering where he is.
Not going to be helping the team, that's for sure. I spy with my little eye, Splyce at risk of being 0-2'd.
Oh, how many Splyce puns can we fit into one sequence?
You know, I really wanted to try look at the Spice Girls song library and see which songs fit the game.
Medic and I did that one a couple of weeks back. It didn't fit too well.
That's the problem.
But Medic also just let me down because he didn't have, he used like Wannabe and used a bunch of lines from the same song and like botched it.
You really got to commit to figure it out. Misfits, I don't really listen to a lot of like grunge punk rock.
Neither do I.
Yeah, you know, there's opportunities there, right? Misfits Gaming, of course, in the lead. They got another dragon, got themselves a great setup to finish this game, and it feels like Splyce have not done as well on this style of game. Misfits have got that sort of 7-14 meta down, that play style, the coordination in the team fights, and there's not a good enough answer from Splyce.
They seem incredibly good at playing this composition style, where you have an earlier game AD carry, a late game mid laner that PowerOfEvil can just dominate team fights with, and then Maxlore just presses an ult in a team fight and basically crowd controls everybody, plays the frontline role, and it's just about saying, okay, is there anybody there? We fight them. As long as they haven't got some crazy scaling champion that we can't kill quickly, we just take every single fight. And that is the one thing Splyce still have in this game. The Tristana can win team fights for them, but Misfits have got on top of the Tristana a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, indeed. Decided to complete that Mortal Reminder on the side of Kobbe. Let's see whether or not it's effective enough at taking down the likes of Alphari or Maxlore. And of course, PowerOfEvil, still one of the big threats. 6-1 and 4, he's got that Hourglass to back up the Proto Belt. And he's found all the flanks in the world, almost about to flame Horizon Sencux as well.
Almost there in that mid lane matchup. And you were talking about the Mortal Reminder. Yes, he doesn't have that anti-tank additional damage that Lord Dominik's brings with that % shred. But we talked about the Executioner's Calling early. It also still gives him the armor penetration, the percentage armor penetration, that when you combo that with the Infinity Edge and the attack speed, all of the damage he already has should still pack a mean punch, even against Maxlore, because you're canceling his passive in team fights as well, and that actually procs fairly often.
Well, we'll see whether or not Maxlore is going to be able to get dropped. Baron will be up in 2 minutes' time. Alder's a few minutes away. Maxlore's put down the Righteous Glory.
PowerOfEvil again.
The flank. You need to keep your eyes on Sencux and Kobbe. Nature's Grasp is thrown down from Maxlore, and that's going to split up the Splyce backline. Wunder's going to use the Gnar, and here comes Ignar. He gets thrown in by Fate's Call. Hans Sama's got the first of the fight. Kobbe remains untouched, and Misfits now peeling away. 2 big critical hits onto Hans Sama, and the unleashed power not used by Sencux. So damage available, but Misfits get a cheeky kill and get out.
It's enough of an opening to set up for the next Baron. In 1 minute 30, Misfits are going to put the wards down and deny Splyce the ability to get into their own jungle. And Splyce have just dropped onto the back foot. They're actually trying to play Misfits at their own game, but keeping Kobbe alive. And they do a decent job of it. Look at how Kobbe kites back once again in the team fight, away from PowerOfEvil, away from the Nature's Grasp here as Kobbe, just desperately trying to get far enough away. But the rest of the fight is going against Wunder. It's only now that Splyce can turn this back around after Misfits commit into a choke against the Tristana. then Misfits recognize they have to back themselves out.
The amount of time it took for Kobbe and Sencux to put any damage down in reply, just simply not acceptable if Splyce are hoping to force a game 3, if Splyce are hoping to come back. But with a 7,000 gold deficit, 5 kills down at 35 minutes, it's tough. You know, they need Misfits to overcommit or to find that great pick until the likes of Hansam.
It's very tough, and one thing I want to note is the fact Wunder has played 2 split push style champions and hasn't had time to split push at any point. It's difficult to do when Misfits are forcing fights again and again, and I wonder if we do go to a game 3 now, whether we'll see a different draft here, because the likes of the Talisman of Ascension, the Righteous Glory, make it just so easy for Misfits to run at Splyce and try and punish them.
All right, the entrance comes up from Ignar. Nobody knocked up yet. Talisman of Ascension available if Ignar decides to use the quickness and run in. Gnar charging
He's going in.
and available. The quickness comes in. Good charm onto Wunder. Kobbe remains untouched for the free hit. Nature's Grass comes down. That's a good stun onto PowerOfEvil. Slows him down. Sencux and Kobbe backing away with their lives. The stun's out. Kobbe gets the first onto Alphari. Wunder hops over the wall. Kobbe's still got that red buff, but there's a very big Maxlore to deal with. PowerOfEvil still at half hit points. Maxlore continues to lay on the front line. Now all of a sudden Splyce are pushing Misfits back.
Oh, wait for Maxlore's W. Wow, that was a lot of damage actually done. Here comes Wunder into the fight.
The teleport comes in from Wunder. Kobbe interrupted on the rocket jump. Gets the kill. Gets the reset. Jumps forward. Gets Ignar. It's Mikyx with the kill. Now all of a sudden Splyce have a chance to take back the lead.
They're going to get the Baron from this. There were a couple of key moments in that fight that Splyce actually was safe with Kobbe that Misfits could have capitalized on. There was a moment where Maxlore utilized the twisting advance on Trashy when Kobbe was sat right next to him. I know he's wanting to not get dragged all the way into the fight with that rocket jump if Kobbe jumps away, but you only need to crowd control him. I want to see whether there are any other options in this fight to kill Kobbe, because here goes Ignar into the fight. Kobbe's out of vision, at least until he starts attacking here. Look, rooted up. No one's getting on him. They can't get through the Cataclysm in time, and Alphari's trying to get further through this fight. And watch Maxlore go on to Trashy here. Kobbe is right next to him, and he could have got it, but we know Kobbe has flash, he has heal that would have dragged him further into the fight, but would it have been enough to lock down this Tristana? We'll never know, because Splyce have just taken the full lead once again. This has been a very back and forth game, but Splyce looked good in the early game, and they've played these later game fights a whole lot better.
Yeah, I mean, definitely finding their groove. I really think that Glacial Prison from Trashy was so pivotal. I mean, look at that Kobbe. It's over 9,000 damage in a single fight, but when he is not under threat, he's able to do so. And I think Trashy locking down PowerOfEvil, slowing down that Hemo play definitely could have been pivotal.
Yeah, there was also an exhaust that went on PowerOfEvil as well. As PowerOfEvil was trying to get into the fight, Splyce did enough to deter his entry and let everybody on Splyce reposition. That's one of the difficulties of fighting one of those choke points, is that's why Sejuani, Gnar, these champions that have good crowd control in an AoE sense can control an entire team fight. Now Splyce had the Baron buff, now they go towards the Elder Drake. Of course, they took no dragons earlier in the game, but will have that team fighting presence coming through.
And that is the first Elder Drake that Splyce have secured in the entirety of the summer split. It is here in game 2, and their backs are against the wall. In cross-group play, they are still down in gold, but the Elder Drake and their team composition, this may be enough power, especially because they got nearly 2 minutes of Baron as well.
The problem with having 2 minutes of Baron is they only have one lane to play it with. Look at mid lane, look at top lane, pushed all the way in. That's what Misfits were doing during some of this Elder Drake setup, which means everybody from Splyce is in one place, which means it's possible to engage on them because Gnar is going to run out soon. Splyce have to respect if they push into the base. Misfits could look for an engage here, but look at how spread out Misfits are. They don't want to overstep here.
So scary against Elder and Baron at the same time.
This is a little risky.
Let's see.
Oh, the Elder actually does tilt it heavily in the favor in a team fight. As long as Kobbe stays alive, you're right. It's not as risky as I first thought.
Yeah, Splyce able to break open Misfits base. This extends the game ever so slightly. We get to 40 minutes on the clock. There are 30 kills secured. The EU LCS summer split record is 49 kills in a single game. Do not think we'll break that one today, because if a team loses a team fight heavy-handedly, the game will just end.
Yeah, at this point, it's either Kobbe or PowerOfEvil just wins a fight. But PowerOfEvil hasn't had that impact in the last few fights. We talked about the executioner's calling, the exhausts have been on point, the crowd control. Everybody has been able to control him in fights.
And, you know, talking about, like, impact and whatnot, we've not really talked about Sencux. He's 0-3-5. His early game Syndra did not generate a gigantic lead. And Sencux has not been a huge damage dealer for Splyce this game.
No.
Been very well controlled by the entirety of Misfits.
Luckily, he's had the Tristana to compensate for some of that, but we are deep into the late game here. That's a Gargoyle Stone Plate on Ignar for when he goes into the fight, providing even more front line here. 3 of them already on Misfits, but look, with the last couple of seconds of that Baron buff from the Runic Affinity on Trashy, they're going to push in, try and get another inhibitor. Hang on, here come Misfits!
All right, the engage comes out. Sencux and Kobbe tagged up by the Hemo Plague. Mikyx trying to block as much as he can. Puts the Glacial Fissure down. Gnar is about to pop here from Wunder. He's got the ultimate available to him as he hops out to escape. Very good stun from Sencux. Glacial Prism buys some time. Kobbe's caught by the quickness, but he instantly is forced to run away.
Oh, that knocker!
From Alphari. Kobbe's the target. Stays alive. Hops out. Keeps alive. Hansama has got a triple, and he's looking for more. Sencux and Kobbe are running for their lives.
Oh, hang on, they might be running in towards the bottom lane as well. They don't have enough to take the game down, but if Misfits commit, they've spotted Kobbe, I believe, on that ward. They have to recall, so Splyce are trying to desperately save anything they can. Remember, Tristana has good pushing potential. Misfits are going to try and end it. Tristana and Syndra could kill Alphari quite easy. They're going to try and race this down.
Kobbe and Sencux take down the Nexus turret. Alphari's left to defend, but he's got no cataclysm.
Can they get
that? The target. Buster shot comes out. Kobbe's caught up. Sencux gets the stun.
They gotta get Sencux.
Needs a few afterwards.
They got it.
Down and going to game 3.
They lose the fight, but win the game, running through the bottom lane. Oh, one auto may have been the difference there if they'd have killed Sencux quicker, but what a call from Splyce at the end of all things. They kept Kobbe alive. Whew, and win the game.
I am at a loss for words. Splyce proved me wrong. I had sentenced them to a 2-0 20 minutes ago when Misfits were winning multiple team fights with the team fight composition they put together. And somehow, Splyce pull it back.
Somehow, some way, they defend Kobbe, keep him alive, get the game win. I feel like that Tristana's getting banned out in game 3. The scaling AD carry with the escape, just like game 1 it was banned. I think that has to be the game plan for Misfits.
Absolutely was. It's banned in game number 1, becomes pivotal in game number 2, and you can see the shell-shocked faces of Misfits backstage as they're chatting to their coach Hussein and reviewing what was a really interesting game and ended in the most peculiar of ways.
Very peculiar. And I mean, Misfits had won the team fight convincingly, and they left Alphari to try and defend, but he was not enough on his own.
Absolutely not, and that means we're going to deciding games. Splyce had the win, they forced the comeback and a crazy finish. Let's head over to the Analyst to take a closer look.
Well, before we take a closer look, Quickshot, I think we definitely want to take another look. But while we get that replay up and running, I think safe to say an absolutely insane game. Definitely come down to some final individual plays, but we can look at this last fight, break this one down for me.
I don't even know how Misfits won this fight because things looked so good for Splyce right at the get-go. The primary engage was off the point from Misfits. They had to focus Wunder on the front line, but then it's when Splyce try to go for the re-engagement that you can see things go in favor of Misfits, because then they get the knock-up and CC down onto Kobbe. You get this beautiful knock-up ulti combo for Alphari. He's soaking up a huge amount of the damage that allows Hansama to just melt through the front line, but they don't take into account the backdoor potential that Kobbe and Sencux have.
I mean, mostly Kobbe. I gotta give Sencux credit, because him being here is crucial, but that Syndra did not touch that tower, right? This Syndra is 3 auto attacks in the final play, but it is, of course, the crucial 3 auto attacks.
It's impossible, right? Like, there's no way you can focus both people, and the fact that Kobbe just did not stop hitting that Nexus while he was dying is really what made the difference, because a little bit longer, and Sencux could have lost that game. He could have died. So.
And I can't decide what... Who are we proud of here in terms of play? Because I feel like on the one hand, Splyce, excellent punish on Misfits getting over aggressive and pushing the mid lane, but at the same time, looking at the two compositions, looking at that Tristana, I felt like team fights should have been, or just about unwinnable for Misfits that late in the game, yet they still managed to find a team fight win.
Yeah, for sure. I think Misfits play that really well towards the end stages, and it says something about the state of tanks when we got a 6-item Tristana with the Seeks, with a Locket with the Night Soul to keep her alive, and she's just free hitting these tanks and still not able to bring them down, as they're able to double their HP with the Stone Plate right there. Kobbe's still really close to be able to carry these fights. In the end, didn't matter though.
I mean, it didn't, right? Like, he still carried the game. That was his
true.
Job,
different normally than we think of an AD carry, but Tristana, of course, notable turret killer. So I guess, you know, living up to that expectation.
But I also think that, like, a lot of these late game fights were heavily going in the favor of Splyce, largely because of how difficult it became to kill Kobbe. And you even saw in that final fight that the only reason why Misfits even stood a chance was because of their opportunity to re-engage, because Splyce wanted to keep the fight going. They wanted to get that inhibitor, they wanted to end the game. So when they tried to make that fight happen, then you have the quickness still ready from the
and we really have to
follow it from Alphari.
Yeah, we really have to praise Ignar too, because if you look back at that, you can see that he goes in and interrupts both the Syndra and the Tristana right as the Gnar goes in to land CC, and so there's actually no follow up on that, and suddenly you're the tiny little Yordle in the middle of the team, and no matter how big you look right now, you're going to get taken down. But if we herald back to the draft, it feels like I feel like Misfits did take some risks here, despite that last fight going so well, just in terms of scaling. Eventually, this Tristana does feel like she's going to be a giant factor in the game. Is that the case? Is this, are you playing on a clock here when you draft, like we saw the Misfits draft in this game?
I don't know if I'd say they were playing on a clock. I think both teams had really good scaling teamfight abilities, because you have like a Vladimir too, who's getting into a lot of really good fights later on into the game. For me, it was just very much something that we were talking a lot with Henning about, like, who could actually engage first. Yeah. Because the team that started the fight was usually the team that actually won the fight, because they got to the target that they wanted to, and then that's how things sort of snowballed out of control.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of the one who starts the fight almost always wins it here, gives like so much power to the Kalista Rakan, as you can engage from such a far range. I mean, you have the Kalista being able to throw in Rakan with the ulti, and then you have the flash and the W as well from so far. From such a long range. Also, the Gnar is kind of weird here. I do like it from Splyce, because it gives you a winning matchup in the top side. Also, when Jarvan creates terrain, well, there's something to use your ulti on. But on the other hand, his rage bar makes it really hard to know like when to fight. It's something that you have to take into consideration. So like, Gnar is really good if you are the one deciding when to fight, but in this game it was Misfits who mostly decided when to fight, so Gnar really not working out in that respect.
And this was another thing that we saw from Splyce, something that we talked about a lot earlier in the day, is that they're not a super proactive team. Often they're really good at punishing the mistakes of their opponents, and a lot of these late game fights was actually just Misfits failing to kill either Kobbe or Sencux, and then Splyce were getting the turnaround plays. But it was very rarely them setting up the fights themselves, getting the vision to get the flanks off. Like, you never really saw Splyce be the initiators, which is why things look so bad for them and why they actually nearly lost this game.
And it was interesting, too, because I feel like in the early game, things started off so well for Splyce. We saw so many missteps from Misfits. We saw a 1-4 Kalista, and across the board, I felt like Splyce had this one 100% in the bag. As we look back at this, you can see the importance of not burning Flash aggressively in the early game.
Yeah, Hansama using both summoners here to try to almost pick up the kill at the Kobbe, and then he gets severely punished for it as more pressure's coming in towards the bottom lane with both of the junglers. But I think this says so much about Splyce that they're in the end able to pick up the kills onto Hansama. Like, he was down 4 deaths early on as a Kalista who kind of wants to snowball early on, which is not good at all. Even though like this dive is fine, you deny so much of the wave from Kobbe and you get the first blood as well. But afterwards, when you get the Tristana rolling and shut down the Kalista, you're still not able to make the proactive plays and force the advantages around the matchup where you are ahead. I mean, you are ahead in the bottom lane by a lot, but Splyce were not able to force fights around that.
Yeah, and that's something that we just wanted to see more from Splyce, that so far I feel like we haven't. But you do have to praise them for regularly punishing the lack of flash on your AD carries. That's very much a lesson at home. Don't flash for the kill, because you don't need to. The pressure was done, he was chunked out, he was either going to go to base, or he was going to get dived on. And if those summoners were ready for the dive, then you could have killed him later on, but the job was done. You had forced him back, and you didn't need to get that kill.
But also remember, folks, that Vedius regularly flashes for anything that he think might be a kill. So, a little bit of duality there. Well, after Splyce is winning game 2, we are ready for one last battle to settle the series. The players hit the rift in a couple of minutes, so don't go anywhere.
Yeah, we're gonna win mid game for sure. Like, Baron, 20 minutes.
Yeah, really good engage.
Hashtag hype.
If he stays under this tower, he's gonna get threatened.
There's a tower dive available. Rocket jump not going to be enough. Kobbe is available for first blood. Hans Sommer, an explosive charge sitting on top of Ignar. Now all
not
of a sudden,
again.
Hans Sommer's the man that's under threat. He's got a flash available. May need it. Less than 100 HP. He's down.
Well played, well played.
Just flash. Okay, nice. There's no flash.
Look, Tristana.
Oh, Syndra. Nice.
He's got Kobbe. Kobbe's low, but not killed yet. Kobbe's the target
He's
of
dead.
Alphari. Alphari shuts him down. This could be the fight for Misfits. Hans Sommer's looking for the cleanup. Trashy goes down. Wunder's the next target. Misfits will ace Splyce.
Nice! Nice!
Hit it.
Oh, Sencux!
One more.
Can they get
The
there?
target. Buster shot comes out. Kobbe's caught up. Sencux gets the stun.
They gotta get Sencux.
Needs a few extra ones.
He got it.
Down and going to game 3.